Welcome to What Are You Noticing with Kish and Mitra. My co-host is Kish. She is a coach, relatefulness facilitator, and improv teacher.
My co-host is Mitra. He is a Dharma teacher, relatefulness facilitator, and coach. In this podcast, we're going to be covering a wide range of topics such as
Relationships,
insights from coaching and facilitation,
spirituality,
living a good life,
Asian American life,
and what's happening for us on our spiritual journeys. Without any further ado, we hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Today, the topic that I proposed is technology.
Well, we're using technology right now, so that seems good.
Yeah. I think it's kind of related to what we had talked about previously with when you don't adapt to a new environment, that is actually a sign of not being healthy. And I think the way that things are, there just is technology, and it can save a lot of time in a number of ways. It can make things possible that weren't before. Like, we couldn't do this if there wasn't video chatting technology.
Yeah, I was talking to someone, I forget, was it you or someone recently that was like, I feel like everyone really needs to have local community. That's really important. But then also the internet's really great because there's not, I think some of the stuff that we're really into that you're not going to find like geographically a lot of people in one area that might have these like really niche particular interests. And so it seems like the internet's really great at connecting with the other people that would be really hard to connect with. But then the shadow side is the ways in which it could undercut local ties or the need for like other ways of relating and communicating.
Yeah. That's something I've been thinking about recently because I have friends in different places. I'm sure like most people do at this point. Like you, other people from different parts of my life, and it's nice to have those connections, and at the same time there is something different that I haven't quite made explicit yet about in-person connections.
I think there's a statistic also that younger people hang out with others less locally because they're using technology more, like social media and texting and stuff. Which is kind of crazy because I remember growing up, like I didn't grow up with that kind of stuff. So like I guess I had to email, but I wouldn't like email my friends. And so it was like phone calls or hanging out physically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a generational difference between us or just personality difference, because I remember when I was younger, I was part of these different online communities
Sure.
loosely. Like I played Neopets, and I remember I was friends with someone on Neopets. I don't know if they were really who they said they were or not. But we were friends on Neopets, and then I was also playing this game a little bit later called Gaia Online.
Oh, I remember that.
And okay, yeah, and I had some friends on there, and even like some people who I knew locally, we would connect through the game. And then as I grew older, I feel like there were more of those things, like being friends with people on Facebook and chatting people up on Facebook Messenger, even if I didn't really know them in real life, meeting different people online. And then, of course, during COVID, a lot of people just transitioned to more online stuff.
Actually, I'm remembering now that like well, two things. One was the non-local was that I used to play a lot of different games and actually made like fan sites and participated in like message boards and
You
made
mean
like
fan
friends.
sites?
I made gaming fan sites. Yeah. I was like a
Oh.
manager of a fan site that had staff at like age 13.
Oh, I think you mentioned you didn't
Yeah.
mention the specifics, but you mentioned that you had like hired people,
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah, we had like advertisers and moderators. It's also making me remember, even locally, I guess in my high school we had like AOL chat, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people in my high school would be on chat, and would like read each other's away messages, and that was a huge big deal. And chatting with girls I liked and being like, "Ooh, we're having an aim chat." Oh man.
Relatable, very
Mm-hmm.
relatable.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it did start early. It did start early. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember, I think maybe it became more mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
the aversion to technology, or maybe it was just something that I picked up from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, like, after my first meditation retreat, I was quite anti technology. And
Mm-hmm.
then after my first circling retreat, I was also being very mindful of technology, but a little bit more integrated. Like, I wanted to
Mm.
use it as a tool, but not as a like way to escape. And then
Mm-hmm.
now I just feel like I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say addicted to technology again, or like addicted to my phone again, but it is a very reliable tool that I use to like dissociate,
Mm-hmm.
or um, like rest mentally.
Yeah, it's making me think about even in this house that I'm in right now, where we have a bunch of meditators and mindful people. We've set certain norms, like they're not exactly rules, but they're sort of norms of when we're eating dinner. Like probably shouldn't be. I think once someone really started like talking to ChatGPT and looking up jokes online and sharing them, and we're like, let's not do that. But I definitely can see sometimes when we're hanging out, one or several of us might just take out our phones and we just start being on our phones, even though we're like physically together, and we're not really we're like browsing the internet separately in the same physical space, but we're not connecting physically. That seems kind of sad. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it seems fine, but other times it seems worse.
I think I I have different perspectives on this.
Mm-hmm.
So one perspective I have is, which is kind of maybe a counter to your
Mm-hmm.
what you just shared, is my partner is mostly secure,
Mm-hmm.
but he has some avoidant tendencies.
Mm.
I think probably because I have like I can have strong anxious tendencies, even though I would say I'm mostly secure now as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Nice.
And thank you. It's been a journey.
Congrats.
Thank you. And something that's really helpful to him is having having time to do his own things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is like, it could be quality time in the like love languages, or other people might
Mm.
call it parallel play, where
Mm-hmm.
you're just together physically, but you're doing different things. And I think that's also nourishing for
Mm.
people in a different
Mm.
way. So
Mm.
that's what comes to mind
Mm.
when I hear you
Mm-hmm.
say that.
Totally.
But I also understand your
Mm-hmm.
perspective.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of when we do like relateful or circling. There's often this injunction that happens of don't share thoughts and don't share stories and be present. Don't go into the past. And then well, those aren't always bad to share. Sometimes you can share a story and it's actually more connecting, or go into the past and it's
Yeah.
actually more what's here. And so similarly, there's like a way in which when people use, even just not even socially, but just with myself, when is watching TV or YouTube or reading a book subtly actually trying to dissociate more and avoid something, and when is it like really nourishing and inspiring or beneficial in the ways that I want.
I think that's the beautiful potential of the tool of technology.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something really beneficial and inspiring and helpful to us.
There's an article by this guy Zach Stein. I think it was Zach Stein wrote, where he basically argues that like technology is often argued that it's like a neutral thing, and it's how you use it determined whether or not it's like good or bad or helpful or detrimental. But his argument is also that like the design of the technology does influence how it's used, and so that the design of technology is not neutral. There are values baked into everything. Why is it designed that way, and how is it designed? And so, like, I think there are so many settings like on phones and computers that could exist that would be so much more beneficial, and I think they're like slowly doing that, but not a lot. Like, I wish my Kindle had like a timer that like popped up. It says like, you've been reading for like 4 hours straight and it's past midnight. Maybe you should go to sleep, you know? Like, why can't I do that? You know? Last night I slept till like 1 o'clock. I was reading till like 1 o'clock, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't. It felt like an addiction. Like I had to keep reading, and I was like, this doesn't feel right at this point.
I think last week at the facilitator gathering on Monday, in-person facilitator gathering for Relatefulness, Jordan was saying how he got really into this book, The Name of the Wind, or Name of the Wind. I think it's like a fantasy series, and he just churns through it really quickly.
Totally.
And he's like a dad and CEO and stuff. And then Val was saying how it wasn't like, it's nice to do that every once in a while. Even though it's kind of like an addiction locally, it's not a problem for him globally. And it's, I like that different perspective.
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess the way my friend would call it, it's like there's like a field of values, and they're like in relationship to each other, and so the problem comes up when like one particular value or thing starts like, this is basically what addiction is, when it starts dominating to the detriment of all the other ones. I feel like I have like a seesaw thing where like I'll find a really good book I like. I'm reading Shogun right now. It's like, I don't know, like 1,000 pages or something. And I'm probably spending like 3 or 4 hours a day reading it. And I'm pretty sure after I finish it, I'll be like, no more books for a while. And I'm more like seesaw into some other thing. Maybe that's okay. I'm not. It's a good question. I don't know.
I think it's nice that you can get so into a book, and that you found a book that you can really get into.
Well, it's partly because I have other blockers. So like my computer and my phone, I have software set up so that it blocks everything at a certain time. And then the only thing I can do that's like digital is my Kindle. And so I think I like funneled my digital addiction to just books.
This reminds me of something else that I've been thinking about, because I've wanted to really replace my phone usage with something else. And one thing that I realized today in therapy is something nice. Like, over time, I've tried to find more positives about the phone usage and like be really kind to myself about it. And I think one thing that I realized that's really nice about my phone usage is that it is truly an unproductive thing to do.
Oh.
Like scrolling on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, it's really the productivity is so low.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really nice for
Mm-hmm.
the part of me that gets overwhelmed
Mm.
because it's so meaningless in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's got just enough that it doesn't feel like it's, I don't know, like shuffling cards or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Right.
something else that's useless. I don't know. Shuffling cards is a skill. But like, I want to replace it with something, and I've thought about reading. It's something that I do sometimes, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't scratch the same itch.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's just a question I have.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I actually had a really similar feel like question because I was like, I want wholesome activities that it's like there's like a productivity addiction or habit, and it's like I don't want to feed that. Where I'm like, well, I'm reading this book or I'm reading this article or I'm learning this skill and it's like productive. I think last time I was thinking about this, talking to someone, I was like, I want to get like coloring books, just color,
Oh,
you know. There's some
oh, interesting.
because it's like really like my child parts. I think like really want to have enjoyment and fun, and reading a book or watching a TV show doesn't really scratch it fully. It's like a dopamine. It's like a cheap soda version, fast food version of what the child actually wants. I mean, sometimes it's fun. Like I watched Dune and that was great, but a lot of the times it feels like a fast food version of the real thing it wants. It's just like fun and like creative and playful.
So that's what your child part wants to have fun, be creative, and be playful.
I think so. I don't. It's buried under so many layers of productivity and other things. But, I mean, a lot of times it's just like I want to be held and like cuddle and like do something fun and just feel a sense of belonging and okayness and do something that's not future oriented, not productivity oriented.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like it's really been, I mean, I shouldn't say really, but it's been a little bit of a struggle because I don't meditate anymore
Mm-hmm.
or I'm on break from meditation.
Mm-hmm.
That there's, I mean, even that for me in the past, it was a kind of productivity.
Mm. Mm.
But I do, like, there's just something about being in the moment and being okay with doing nothing or non-action or something.
At the house here, actually we did like a 4 hour meditation mini retreat last weekend, and yeah, it was really nice. Just kind of like I don't think any of us were like hardcore trying to achieve anything, but it was just sort of like just gonna set aside the morning and just kind of like be here. And some people like lie down and just sort of like following our breaths or letting our body decompose. Actually, I really love the sauna. I mean, it's kind of actually well. I was gonna say the sauna does this for me, but then I was thinking, well, it actually has a lot of like actual benefits too, and it's actually kind of
Yeah.
painful. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it actually.
Yeah, I don't do sauna anymore, but I remember when I would do it, there's there is a discomfort to it, and then there's like you could like turn towards the discomfort or turn away from the discomfort.
Mm-hmm. Did you think the discomfort just get too big, and you're like, why am I doing this?
Well, I I guess I don't know if I'm abnormal in this way
Oh.
or I'm have low tolerance. Like I can't really stay in the sauna or like a hot tub for too long
Mm-hmm.
or I'll get kind of faint.
Mm.
So I would just break it up. The place that I used to go to,
Mm.
it was like a private sauna room
Mm-hmm.
and there was a shower
Mm.
in the room. So I would just take a break, take like a cold or lukewarm shower or something, get back in.
Mm-hmm.
So it never get like overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. How often do you use your phone?
I was gonna ask you a follow-up
Really?
question.
Oh, okay.
I use my phone every day.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 2 or 3 hours a day. And
Mm-hmm.
some of that is, you know, stuff that I quote unquote have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like checking emails or
Mm-hmm.
uh, keeping up connections or planning things,
Hmm.
looking at my calendar, Google Maps, whatever. But a lot of it is just stuff that I don't have to do.
Hmm. Are you like on TikTok or like Insta or like?
I'm not on TikTok, but I do watch YouTube shorts. Yeah.
Huh.
But I think one thing that I keep noticing over time is that sometimes I'll be on my phone, but there is a sense of dissatisfaction with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing this because this is my habit. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that's really giving
Mm-hmm.
me what I need right now.
Mm-hmm.
And in lieu of a better alternative or something else to try, I just do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually feel like I'm thinking about my day, and I actually like feel mostly good, except when I have like basically open time in like the start or the end of the day, or if I just happen to have like a chunk of time in the middle of the day somehow. That's like when it's like if I don't have any scheduled and I don't really want to like get at something, then yeah, it's like the easy thing is like to pull up my phone or like watch YouTube or something. And if that goes on for too long, then I start feeling icky afterwards. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like what you said like earlier, I think yesterday like I finished a bunch of calls, and then like I ate lunch and I think I spent like an hour or two on YouTube. And then initially when I like snapped out of that, I kind of felt some shame. But then I looked at the clock and I was like, I still have like 4 hours of time. I can definitely do a lot of stuff, and like I just did a bunch of stuff. So I'm like, maybe like 2 hours is fine to just have like passive entertainment. Because there's that weird way in which like I know if I like shame myself about it, I'll weirdly just end up using it more. It's well, I wasted the day, so I might as well just waste the entire day,
Mm.
rather than being like, well, I still got like 3/4 of a day left, or half a day left, or a quarter of a day left. I can choose. Do I want to do that more, or do I want to do something else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It reminds me of this idea, which I think is in the mainstream,
Mm.
of having a little treat or
Mm.
giving yourself a little treat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of positive reinforcement is nice, especially for people like us
Mm-hmm.
and, perhaps most Asian Americans or
Mm-hmm.
whatever else causes you to just not really celebrate yourself or
Mm-hmm.
focus more on the negative than focus on the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's nice to have
Mm-hmm.
to give yourself a break or to give yourself a little treat of some sort
Mm-hmm.
after doing some difficult things or just getting
Mm-hmm.
some things done. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not, yeah, it's like hard to find what would be a good little treat because you
Mm-hmm.
can't always get
Right.
you can't always get yourself boba.
It seems like a lot of the work too is just like trying to develop a positive relationship. Oh, look at that. You have a
This
treat.
is a smoothie.
Oh, really?
I guess it is more of a treat today. I put some hazelnut spread.
Nice. Nice. Get that sweetness. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like a way in which I'm trying to develop a positive relationship, both to, like myself and my experience, and so it becomes less about like rules and right and wrong and good and bad, and more about like, is this being kind to myself or kind to the experience? And
Mm-hmm.
I know Aditya had this nice frame where he would say like sometimes he ends up playing video games on his phone, and usually that would be like a sign to him of like, oh, I must be struggling with something, and now I'm like reverting to like a lower level coping mechanism, and he'll just sort of like flag it and be like, all right, well, that's like something is up, but isn't it so great? I have something to like cope, and then
Mm-hmm.
we'll work on it as it sort of metabolizes. Um, yeah.
I like hearing that. I guess I never talked to Aditya about this, but I
Mm-hmm.
like hearing that both of you also struggle with this at times
Mm-hmm.
or have this experience.
Yeah. I feel like I know like one or two people that had that like regimented, they like tracked every hour of their day and were like productivity nerds and had like weekly reviews and monthly reviews and quarterly reviews and annual goals and all this stuff. And they got a lot done, but I feel like most of them burnt out eventually. It kind of just collapsed. And so there's something about like using productivity systems, but then having like some slack to be able to like handle, I don't know, the shocks of life.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed this past month with my system,
Mm.
or, whatever my system
Mm-hmm.
is of scheduling things and allocating time and saying yes or no to things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of like what we were talking about before the recording started, but there's this one part that gets really overwhelmed
Mm.
and like kind of knows it's starting to learn like what I really need. So
Mm-hmm.
like I think one thing that's really supportive for me is not having like more than 4 scheduled things each day.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is being able to just sleep in
Mm. Nice.
and wake up without an alarm. And then this other side, which is the more regimented, maybe productivity focused, rule focused, want to be a good person part. And I think where I was landing with that was I was like really just trying to ride the line between those two. But then when things inevitably come up, like different requests or different events or something, it's so easy for me to tip into the overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think about when I hear about people getting burned out, because I think if you're really always trying to operate at your max capacity or 80% or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
inevitably things are going to come up. You're going to get sick,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. And it's
Mm-hmm.
going to, I think it's good to build in some wiggle room for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this kind of touches into the other topic that I was interested about, which is like kind of self-care routines. And one of the people I live with has like a whole like, actually two of them have like a whole morning routine where they like go on a walk and like they meditate and exercise and like breath work, and it's actually been inspiring for me because it changed some of my habits, and like I also like don't have, every once in a while maybe if I have like a like I have to like go on an airplane or something, but otherwise I kind of like don't have a alarm for waking up in the morning, and sort of set aside the first hour or 2 or even 3 hours of the morning to just kind of have a soft opening, and I think I've done a good job of like not putting pressure on myself that I have to be like productive or like on in the morning. And also, I think I could still do more like nourishing or fun or like uplifting, energizing things. It feels like I'm getting to like a consistent good baseline, but I'm not necessarily like starting the day like excited or like fresh.
That reminds me of a totally different topic,
Mm.
which is, I think it's kind of like a metaphor. So,
Okay.
so I've been like struggling with this health thing this past year, and I think one of the things that I'm trying to focus on now is having a healthier gut, and so that means having better bacteria in there, gut bacteria, and so I've been focusing more on my diet, and I realized that there's like there's one recipe that I really like, but I can't have it every week because then I just get tired of it. And I think it definitely takes work and experience and probably deliberate effort to really identify what are those things that are like good for me, like satisfy all these requirements or values that I have. And like when I hear you talk about the morning routine, I think about, you know, I haven't even identified the things that like really are fun for me or really get me in a good mood or really help me relax.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can relate a lot to the gut bacteria stuff, but it's also making me think about like the nervous system and how much of like tech addiction or like doing like coping mechanisms, a lot of it's like my nervous system's jacked up in some way, and then I'm like using different coping mechanisms to keep it in check, but it isn't always actually processing or digesting or actually healing the activation or something. And I know there are like things that I can do, like getting coaching or like doing meditation or breath work or certain types of exercise and stuff, and there's always like that initial friction or wall to like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure that'll work. I always feel better afterwards, and I don't want to do it. I was feeling really meh like last week, and I was still doing all my stuff, and I even went to therapy. And I was like confused. I was like been feeling really kind of like whatever this week, and I'm like eating well, I'm sleeping well, I'm still exercising every day, you know, everything's going fine, nothing bad happened. And then I had a conversation with one of my housemates and another conversation with someone else over the weekend, and I felt way better afterwards. I was like, oh, okay, there's probably like some underlying hurt that I was like starting to feel into, but was also kind of avoiding. I don't know. I feel sometimes people advocate a lot of like coping mechanisms, like more and more healthier coping mechanisms. But then there is like some other mysterious thing that I think is like personal to each person and their circumstances of what actually lights you up and like what actually are the roadblocks. It's like harder to like universalize or make a protocol out of. And especially with like the guts, like what foods are actually good for each person, I think is like so specific to each person. So hard to know.
Yeah. I'm hearing more of an approach of addressing the thing that requires the coping mechanism in the first place, as opposed to adding more coping mechanisms on top.
Yeah, and also it's like I think a lot of us have given a certain amount of energy each day that wants to be spent, and if it's spent in ways that we enjoy and appreciate and like, then we feel good. And then if we're like doing things we don't necessarily like, and then we use coping mechanisms to buffer that or something, then it's just like
Yeah. That's like the equivalent of, I'm trying to think of a gut analogy, but I think it's the equivalent of, I can't think of one. I think it's the equivalent of just medicating yourself as opposed to really like looking into what's causing the underlying issue.
Gut
I'm
stuff is
curious.
hard.
Yeah. How do you think about those types of things that really address the underlying issues, like you said, coaching or therapy or talking to people? how do you think about that in relation to your self-care routine?
I don't think this is true for everyone, which really confuses me. And I don't understand, but I think for myself, I'm always like kind of growing and learning, and there's like different shadows and things from the past that are always surfacing, as well as new skills or parts of me that want to get developed. And
Mm-hmm.
the process of doing either of those, like cleaning up my old material or learning into a new area, like I'm trying to do like a lot more like videos stuff now and this podcast and everything. It's stretching in a way, and that feels really uncomfortable and hard at
Mm-hmm.
times in the process, and it's so easy for my nervous system to conflate that difficulty with like actual saying it's an actual problem or it's a danger or it's bad. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think like being kind to myself and building in slack and deliberate supports, that it's okay that when I'm going through like healing old patterns or I'm trying to learn new things, it's gonna feel really messy and bad sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and not get down on myself or not. Uh, for me, it'd be like a lot of isolation and wanting to just like stop and be like, well, I guess this isn't doable. I'm just gonna keep doing what I've always done or something. I think the one I'm learning in this past year, and it's coming up again even more strongly, is just like receiving a lot of care and support,
Mm-hmm.
and like advocating for myself to get that and ask for that. Yeah. I'm also lucky because like everyone in my house is a trained coach, so we've all learned the same modalities.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they all did Alethea, and so
Okay.
I I could literally probably get coaching every day of the week if I wanted to. So yeah, I could get on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that answer the question? What was the self care and addressing the fun that like the root
It kind of
thing?
does. It wasn't the kind of answer that I thought it would be, but
Mm.
I think the thing that I'm really taking from your answer is there's this self-awareness plus like compassion piece of just realizing that certain things are hard for you, or
Mm-hmm.
the way that you live your life, which I relate to, just like brings up a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stuff to digest and
Mm-hmm.
possibly work through, um, and just like really recognizing that.
Mm-hmm. There's also this other area, I guess, of like SJ actually helped me with this of like recognizing the difference between like coping and processing and maybe enacting. I shouldn't use that word, but like because I can't always process things, or I can't always. Well, this comes up with like encircling. It's not always possible to like like it doesn't feel safe in the space to fully surrender or really go into something. And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe I'll do coping, or maybe I don't have enough time to like really. And also, it's like I think some like the deepest traumas just takes like days or weeks or months, and it goes up and down, and it's really confusing. And so it's like, what are the coping things I can do to like stay functional and keep doing my responsibilities, and then also budget other times for really going into stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Self care feels like almost like maintenance on a car or something. It's like the if I don't do these things, it'll gradually my entire system will just like gradually get worse and worse and worse, and then that's different from actually like trying to heal the trauma or trying to like learn this entirely new thing. Um,
Mm-hmm. If I could add to the analogy,
mm,
the coping mechanisms are like making sure that you've always got gas in the
mm-hmm,
tank or something, so that you're still able to go,
mm-hmm,
but you can only, I don't know. I don't know much about cars, but you can drive for a while with the check engine light on, but eventually
Uh-huh.
you probably want to check it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, or I guess in like parts language, it's like we develop parts that try to do the job of presence, and like parts try, like the like productivity overlord like tries to do a good job, but ultimately we don't want to operate from parts. Like parts are fundamentally limited and fragmented. But I do get the sense like a lot of times when when we're either traumatized or we're like first learning a skill, it almost always like starts with parts, and then we like learn the integration and can do it from presence.
Hmm.
I guess tangible
Hmm.
examples like encircling a lot of times like the new beginners, or even for like even old timers, it's like you just start with like just keep doing this one thing, just like learn to speak your mind no matter what, or practice being disagreeable, or it could be like shut up and don't say anything, whatever it is. And it's like obviously a limited narrow scope, but you just have to start somewhere, so we'll start there and then integrate it into like a bigger whole.
Hmm.
This is what's happening for you.
Addiction not solved yet.
Mm. Mm. I mean, in Buddhism, they used to say you're just learning to trade up your addictions. So you just trade one bad addiction for a little bit less bad addiction, and you just keep doing that until maybe reaching the thing that's not addicting at all.
Mm. Hmm.
But it seems high bar.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that kind of approach is the more gradual approach is really loving to me because I
Mm-hmm.
can be very extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm spending too much time on my phone, like, don't use my phone at all
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think what's more sustainable and nice is just find, like, do this for
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes instead of being on my phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, like the greatest hack is like, and what was really great at the monastery was just like social infrastructure or social pressure or something.
Hmm.
If I live with people that are living a good life, like I'll naturally want to kind of match that cadence. And if people are cooking good meals, I'm more likely to cook a good meal. And then if I'm around people that are just like blasé about stuff, then I'm probably gonna be more blasé about things. Be like, can I replace my tech addiction with a better addiction? I don't know what that would be.
Oh, I'm trying to think of better addictions. The first one that came to my mind was cuddling addiction.
Mm.
Second one was fitness addiction.
Mm-hmm. Those are both pretty good.
Okay, you think they're better than a tech addiction?
I mean, anything can be done poorly, but yeah, those seem pretty good.
Okay.
I was thinking just like, mine was like going on a walk. I was like, maybe when I want to use my phone, I could just go on a walk. I can't do it at night. That's the problem. So,
Mm.
hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When we were in Austin, I lived with like a DP and others. Sometimes we'd have like evening cuddles, and that worked
Oh.
really well. I'll just go right to sleep and feel great. No desire to use electronics. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something about that story that makes me think whether there are it's like social media teases you and makes you think you're getting like a certain need met, maybe the need for connection or something, because so much of the content is other people, but it's a fake connection. Yeah, lots of thoughts from today. I think my surprising favorite part was knowing that you also have you're also working on your gut health.
Oh my god, yeah. That could be a whole day-long conversation.
I'm hoping, so I'm gonna go on a trip for a couple weeks, and I'm hoping that I want to learn more about diet, basically, and I'm hoping that I'm gonna start this book called How Not to Die.
Well, and live
it's
forever.
About food.
Oh, okay.
I think it's more just about how not to die prematurely.
Okay, cool.
I think, but I'm hoping to learn more about food and gut health, especially since it's just such an important part of life. Yeah.
It's one of those areas that's like not well understood, and I think the science and technology is still pretty early, and so it's actually like one of the rare few places where like each person has to be like really their own like expert of themselves, because it's like so hard to actually find good, like none of the information is like very universal, like it's like really hard to make any of the advice universal with gut health. But yeah, and also like the intersection between like emotional stuff with gut stuff, they're very intertwined.
Yeah. Or just billions, trillions of bacteria.
Some of them aren't very happy about it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mitra.
Thanks, Kish.
Thanks for listening. This podcast was executive produced by Mitra and Kish, was written by Kish and Mitra, and performed by Mitra and Kish. Like, review, and subscribe wherever your podcasts are found.
For more information about Mitra, you can visit his website at peterxpark.com. And for more information about me, you can visit my website at kishandyou.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.